Hey guys, so I just got done watching Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves. It is a fantasy, action, heist, comedy film. It's kind of all those things. Um, so I didn't know anything about Dungeons and Dragons prior. It's like a tabletop role playing board game. So I don't know a lot about the the history of Dungeons and Dragons. So I didn't know what to expect. I just watched it because I like fantasy movies like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and things like that. So I gotta say, it takes the typical archetype of a fantasy hero and it turns it on its head. Whereas we're introduced to Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez in the beginning, and they're like sitting in jail, and then their hearing comes, and they can make their plea about why they should be released. He goes into this whole spiel about how he ended up there and why he should be released. So it's kind of a nice take on the fantasy genre because these guys aren't like super noble and heroic. They've been doing pretty shady things as far as like going around stealing things and kind of enriching themselves. Although they did have a code not to ever like harm anyone, but I thought that was cool because it's not like it's not like a typical fantasy hero that you would see in some other movies. Um, so overall, I did like this movie. I like the story quite a bit. It's also not very typical because it's not like this typical good versus evil. Like they have to stop this evil sorcerer from taking over the world. There is, they get into the Red Wizards later, which it wasn't really a Red Wizards want to take over the world. We have to stop them. It wasn't like that. Honestly, it's more like a personal story where Chris Pine wants these items, one totem to um, the totem of revival, I think, so he can bring his wife back to life. Which we find out it was because of his greed earlier in his career when he was being a thief. He stole uh, treasure from the Red Wizards, and their treasure was marked. And so when he took it home, they killed his wife. So we found out that he was the cause of his wife's own death, and he has a lot of guilt and resentment over that. So, I do think that was like a really good element of the film. And, once he kind of recruits all these other misfits, they have their team, and they have to basically, he really just wants his daughter back. That's the main focus of the story, to get his daughter back and the totem to bring his wife back to life. Of course, once they are assembling and they start finding more things out about Forge and how he's in league with the Red Wizards, the plot starts to unfold. So, it kind of gets a little bit more complex, more than just so he wants to get his kid back and bring his wife back to life. But there's a lot of good story in there. The comedy is awesome. I feel like it's just the right amount of comedy. Not like in Marvel, where like Marvel's first agenda is the comedy. Like they want to put the jokes first and foremost and then build like the story around it. Whereas Dungeons and Dragons did it perfectly. Like it's humorous at the moments it needs to be, and it's serious at the moments it needs to be. So overall, I really like this movie. I like the creatures, the special effects, very cool. I give this movie a 9 out of 10. If you love action, fantasy, comedy, then this is definitely a film you will like. So definitely check out Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves.